Hello, everybody. Welcome, everybody, today to this really great, interesting call. This is Claudia here on our Facebook and YouTube live with Utopian Global. We have a great subject today with the founder and CEO, Bill Rowell. We're going to talk about gold. We're going to talk about silver, and we're going to talk about Bitcoin. I know everybody wants to know what's his opinion. What do we think? What do we believe? Do we like Bitcoin? Don't we like Bitcoin? And so on. So, Bill, it is a great pleasure to have you on the call today, the founder and CEO of Utopian Global. Now, you're a very successful business entrepreneur around since long time doing businesses. I'm going to enjoy this conversation, I believe, with you today on Bitcoin. Are you excited?
Very exciting subject, Claudia. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And of course, people, can they type questions to you or comments?
They can.
I have no idea on this platform. Okay, that's good. So they can do that as well if they like.
This is why I'm here, your host today, to be able to take those questions from the people. Isn't that great?
Absolutely.
Good, fantastic. Well, let's get started. I mean, I know it's a very hot subject, Bitcoin. We are in the gold business since a long time. You're a licensed gold dealer with the DMCC in Dubai. So you're actually licensed, of course, to that. You're very much inside in the gold market. You have been certainly introduced to this amazing market through Philip Judge. Philip Judge, who owns a precious metals ETF, 100% physical backed by, as well as a gold bullion bank. So we're really much into the gold market, having been surrounded for many years now with gold people. I mean, you had David Morgan on the call. He's more so the silver guy. You have, of course, dealt with Chris Martenson. We know, of course, Jim Rickards. He sits on the board of Philips, of course, your good friend, and of course, co-founder Philip Judge is, of course, physical precious metals fund. So you're really surrounded in the gold market very heavily and deeply. Now, Bitcoin is, of course, a great discussion here, and it's a hot topic. Some people like it, some people don't. What's your take on Bitcoin?
Well, Claudia, I like Bitcoin very much for many reasons. If you like cryptocurrency, in particular, the father of all of them, being Bitcoin, there's many reasons. I mean, first reason is it's decentralized. It has a limited supply. It's a medium of exchange. It's fungible. One Bitcoin, if I have one Bitcoin, I'll give you one Bitcoin. It's the same measurement, same unit in that particular sense. It's anti-inflationary. That's with the limited supply. So when it comes to money, I like it very much. It's portable, much more portable than gold in that respect. But it's in one respect, it's the merging. In fact, let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a payment system. It's a peer-to-peer payment system. That's what it was designed for. So in one sense, people can speculate and call it an investment. I invest in Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. We were mining in Bitcoin some years back until the market changed and those rigs went out of they were no longer profitable, unfortunately. But I still own Bitcoin. I still buy Bitcoin today. So I believe in diversification, and that the technological age is changing things. But there's pros and cons for both. But to answer your question, I like both. I own both and continually buy both in that respect, Claudia.
That's of course a great insight that you do own both, so you're not against it. Definitely not. I know that, of course. I also very much like Bitcoin. I see, of course, Bitcoin as well as a store of value because obviously it has this limitation, so it will eventually, end. So in terms of there will be no any more new Bitcoin generated. So I like it for that aspect as well. Now, a lot of the people, they are asking, how do you view in Bitcoin in terms of, I mean, we know gold and silver is it's pretty much, it's a hedge against inflation. It's basically always outdoes any currencies. So what's your take on, right now we obviously getting, again, a move in the market, meaning Bitcoin gets up again. What do you think in terms of, price range? Do you think, is it a concern for you? Do you care about it? Or is it sort of like gold? It's about the way I see it, like how much gold do I own? I want to own more and more gold as my portfolio grows. How do you see the take on the price development on Bitcoin? Basically.
Oh, actually, I don't know, to be quite honest. I mean, I own Bitcoin for a number of reasons. Let's just look at it. I mean, Bitcoin's been around since what now? How many years is it now? 10 years? 11 years, something like that. So it's been around primarily for 11 years. Really only come into the world primarily, let's say, significantly, probably in the last 7 or 8 years. It has significant, its market cap, I think, what is it now? $150 billion or something like that. Where the gold has 7.5 trillion market cap compared to Bitcoin 150 billion. The daily volume of Bitcoin in transactions, maybe $3 to $4 billion per day. With gold on the futures market could be 110 to 200 billion dollars a day. So significance. Gold's been around for 5,000 years. It's been a hedge against inflation. It's the canary in the gold mine. Has history. Gold cannot be destroyed. It cannot be destroyed. So it could be the bottom of an ocean for 1,000 years. You can take it off, you can wipe it, and it still has value. So it's the only element on planet Earth that we know of that cannot be destroyed in one sense. You can melt it, you can hit it, you can do whatever you want to do it, but you won't destroy gold. Bitcoin, of course, it's a digital currency, and that's what it was designed for. This has one application, a peer-to-peer payment system. So what could happen with that? Well, I like it as a peer-to-peer payment system. We, as Utopian Global, we pay out a lot of people on Bitcoin around the world. It's very easy. It's much more efficient and quicker than banks, much more cost-effective than banks. It's, time-wise, it's much faster as well. To me, pay out people in physical gold is not so easy. We ship gold and silver around the world. It's not as portable. It's more difficult. But on the other side, of course, we've got to ask ourselves, why do we want to own these particular assets in one sense? Why do you want to own gold, and why would you like to own Bitcoin? The answer might be that you speculate on price and you want to trade a profit. I don't really do it. Probably I probably speculate more on price with Bitcoin because I believe it's going to go up maybe a lot faster because it's relatively new, and the adoption, meaning the number of people who are using it, is actually growing. I mean, PayPal just announced that they're actually going to be using Bitcoin in their payment system, which is absolutely fantastic. Congratulate to them. So as the adoption grows, and of course the mining is the halving of Bitcoin mining is halving every 4 years. It was halved this year, and I think it was May. And there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins. So demand, supply, the adoptability increasing. I see this as a strong trend for upside on the price. So I like to own Bitcoin. I speculate on that particular model to own that for a long time in one sense. But on the other hand, if you look around the world, if you go and you can actually Google it yourself, go and Google governments by instruction that have shut down internet. Now you may own, if historically people own gold, historically people have owned gold as an insurance policy against the effects of inflation. But if you're living in a country which is adverse to war and different things and politics, and you may own gold because so much inflation there, and you've been to countries, Claudia. I mean, you were in Venezuela many maybe 20 years ago, when Venezuela was probably the strongest and most wealthiest country in that region of the world, Latin America. Look at it today; it's totally destroyed. So people today are actually using, of course, Bitcoin very much there because the other currencies are destroyed and has hyperinflation in one sense. When you were there 20 years ago, people were owning gold there. It was quite prosperous, and gold in many of these countries around the world is seen as a store of value, actually, as you said. But we see countries around the world today, they probably India is probably the biggest culprit of how many times it's actually by government instruction shut down its internet. So if you're in a country and you've got wealth and you need to get out of the country for some particular reason, gold, you could always present some gold at the time to maybe buy your freedom. And you know stories from the wars, Claudia, of course, and we know stories even from the fall of Saigon, which is now Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, where people, if you didn't have the US dollar was not accepted, but if you had gold, you bought your freedom. And people were sewing grams of gold and grains of gold and jewelry into their clothes to be able to escape with some of their prosperity and wealth. Well, maybe at the time, I suppose, of adverse situations when you just need to have that Bitcoin to be able to digitally transfer it to someone else, the value to be able to do whatever you want to do. Maybe there's no internet. Maybe you've lost your key. I mean, many people around the world, probably tens of thousands of them, have lost keys or lost their Bitcoin and can no longer access that particular wealth. So that's the other side. That's the negative side to it, of course. But gold, of course, as I said, it can't be destroyed. It's tangible. It's real. It's there in your hand. Of course, it can be stolen from you, of course, but so can the keys on your Bitcoin account. Gold also has many other applications. You know, you have every smartphone, every iPhone probably has about 0.03 of a gram of gold in it. So it's about a couple of dollars of gold is probably in every smartphone. It's used in many applications, from pharmaceuticals to food additives as well. It's a great conductor of electricity, as is silver, of course. Many, many, many applications that this has. The value will never go to zero for that particular reason.
Cosmetics, face
yes, well,
cream,
I don't use
gold.
it for cosmetics myself. You may, but that sounds very nice. Gold handbags and shoes, Claudia. Okay. But on the other side, Bitcoin, of course, the price has been volatile. I mean, it's been pretty stable this particular year, but it's a new currency. You've got to treat it as a currency. So it has been a bit of volatility there, but I think this year hasn't been too bad. It's had some movements, but you know, I have not been over concerned about it this particular year. But if we go back historically, it's been quite volatile. But gold can be also volatile. If the US dollar gets strong or the euro gets strong against gold, we can also have big price movements of $100 an ounce of gold as well. But if you look at the long term, I like both of them. I think you need to own both of them as a protection, because both of them are actually seen to be a safe haven against the effects of inflation and you know, economic and geopolitical situations that go on. So I think it's great to own some gold. I think it's great to own some Bitcoin. And you know, how much Bitcoin you should own, I really don't know what the answer to that should be. Primarily, I was always educated through Philip Judge, the bullion banker. Maybe you should have 5 to 10% of your paper assets held in particularly gold, depending on your situation. I think it's great to have some Bitcoin, and if you can, you can keep adding to that because it is divisible, of course, in Satoshis. You keep adding to that on a monthly basis in some way, putting a little bit of your savings into Bitcoin. I think it's quite smart. It's the same as what you've been doing for 12 years, Claudia, when it comes to precious metals. Every month you buy X number of grams or ounces of gold or silver. You just keep adding it each particular month. You're building real wealth, a real value, a store of value in your gold vault and silver vault. On the other side, I think it's a great idea to also convert some of your paper wealth, which is losing its value, into a highly liquid currency such as Bitcoin. But it will be volatile. I don't sell either, actually. I like to just build it, but it's going to be there if I needed to liquidate. Both of them can be liquidated very, very easily, very quickly, of course, and converted back to cash wherever you are, what country of the world you're in. So in summation, they both got I think they're both positive. You hear arguments, people saying, well, Bitcoin's much better than gold. I would argue that. I mean, gold's been around for 5,000 years. Bitcoin's been around for 10, 12 years in one sense, and it can be controlled. It can be controlled by government by flicking the switch on the internet, or maybe you've lost your keys. But gold can also be controlled and has been controlled by the bullion banks and by governments as well. We saw in America from 1933 till 1972 or 3 it was, where, of course, it was illegal for citizens in the United States to actually own gold in one sense. We see central banks in the world owning gold. There's only ever been about 160, let's say 170,000 metric tons of gold ever mined, and it's in circulation in the world as we speak. And about 20% of that, let's say 30,000 tons of that, is held in central banks around the world. I don't know if central banks at this stage are actually hoarding Bitcoin. Maybe they are. I think they probably are quietly, but I don't know if it's on their balance sheet, on the Fed's balance sheet. I'm not aware of that. But I think it would be quite smart that they were to do that. I mean, gold, there's no other element on this planet like gold. It's totally unique. Nothing else has been discovered. They can't synthesize it. They can't. People say they can get it off asteroids in the future, or maybe from planet Mars. That's fantastic. Just imagine the price of gold would be to be able to get an ounce of gold bought from Mars or an asteroid. Imagine what the cost of that mining would be to bring that to planet Earth. I mean, gold is limited supply. Is going to be the question is what price you have to pay to get it, to be able to get it in your hand refined to the purity that you want. On the other hand, of course, we see governments. We see China. They've actually launched their e-currency, the yuan. Quite smart by them. Some suggest it may even be partially backed by gold, because China's been buying up so much gold over the last, particularly since 2008. And they've probably increased their hoarding by about fivefold, but they don't share the deck of cards. We don't know exactly what the holding is, but Chinese people are also big buyers of gold. So you just don't have the central bank that owns gold. You also have the nation, a population of 1.4 billion people. I'm not saying they all have it, but a lot of people in that culture would own gold in one sense, because it's part of their particular culture. Where on the other side of it, let's use the United States, which is the largest, or said to be the largest holder of gold in Fort Knox, 8,200, 8,400 metric tons of gold held for the central bank. Conversely, I don't think individuals in the States would have a high savings of gold compared to people like China or India and these particular cultures. So there's many variables there, Claudia, and gold can't be destroyed, but certainly Bitcoin could. And because of this competition now of governments, I see the biggest threat probably on the regulatory side. Yes, there's a regulatory side when it comes to gold, but on Bitcoin, I mean, it could be, and we've seen we've seen governments around the world, whether they adopt it, whether they don't adopt it. And now that governments around the world, and the United States will certainly come out with their own US dollar, I'm sure, and they want you to use their cryptocurrency or their e-currency versus Bitcoin. Bitcoin might be more on the black market, become in one sense. I would actually go with Bitcoin. I wouldn't use it. I am not interested at this stage in owning a sovereign e-currency, let's say like yuan. I mean, I was living in China. It's probably, I would need to have some because it's so easy to pay. Just go anywhere, taxis, whatever, and zap, I just pay with my yuan. Would be very, very easy. I don't have to hold currency. And that would maybe be the same in the future in many years to come when the US catches up with its infrastructure and things. They might do the same with their US dollar. So that's going to put big competition towards, of course, on the adoption side to Bitcoin. But I think people who understand Bitcoin, who understand gold, people are always going to be gold people for the fundamentals, that the reason why they are. And I think people who understand Bitcoin for the fundamental reasons why they buy Bitcoin, and that's decentralized and it's limited supply and it's very portable. All these particular reasons, I think people will primarily go for that because they'd rather have the independence of having ownership of a currency that's not owned by anyone. It's decentralized, which is absolutely fantastic. And I totally believe in that in principle versus a government sovereign e-currency. So there's many, many, many points there, Claudia. But I suppose my takeaway is it's good to have both. I'm not giving you financial advice, but I like, I'm buying both, and I think long term it's a great thing to have. And Bitcoin is just actually ingenious, to be quite honest.
And like gold, of course, Bitcoin, you touched on it, sort of like freedom, right? I mean, for me, what is gold? Gold is freedom. And for me, Bitcoin is a little bit the same. I mean, the story when I was introduced to Bitcoin, which I still don't know if I may. I'm gonna be a billionaire because somewhere my Bitcoin is, if I bought it or not. So I'm still don't know. I'm still in the not knowing. So the story. I was in Panama and actually the office of us back then, and when we just it was just really after probably in the late 2010, something like that. And I was talking to Philip Judge, the gold bullion dealer, and of course your business partner and co-founder of the company. So was so interesting, and we were talking because he had been going through with even some people he knows very well who launched their own gold coins and stuff like that, and governments shut it down. And so when of course I learned about this Bitcoin model, and I did read, of course, the Satoshi's paper, I was so intrigued, and I was like, wow, I mean, this is really the fundamentals. I mean, this is really so great. This is really has so much similarities to gold. And so I shared it, of course, back then with Philip. But of course, back then it was still, I mean, this was so early days. So I don't really remember where I have it. But the point I was making was the regulation. So Philip, he was giving me all the arguments back then about, of course, what governments, are able to do. So my little sense on that is, this is just my point of view, is yeah, I mean, the regulation, with Bitcoin. So I never put all my eggs in one basket. I own gold, I own silver, and I'm owning more and more of it. But I also accumulate Bitcoin. I just wouldn't go, from my perspective, this is my personal perspective, go all into Bitcoin. I have it well diversified, because you just never know what it's going to happen with it, right? That's my personal view. Maybe you have a different one.
Well, Bitcoin's proven nothing has failed with Bitcoin. I mean, wallet providers have failed, exchanges have failed, been hacked, but Bitcoin as itself, as a peer-to-peer payment system, has never failed. It's been fantastic. I mean, it's been volatile in its pricing at times, of course. Yeah, but if I was you, Claudia, if you bought €100 worth of Bitcoin back in 2008, I would be spending more of your time looking for that laptop and finding that key, because you'd be certainly a multi-millionaire even for €100 investment back at that particular time. It could be a game changer for you. But you can see what can happen. People lost the key, don't understand the technology. Even today, it's very challenging with technology and different things, understanding it. I mean, the younger generation, they grew up with phones, so it's not a problem for them. But some of us older dudes, I'm talking about me, not you, Claudia, of course, it's a little bit more challenging, of course, and people lose the keys. I mean, I speak to, I'd say, wealthy people quite often, and we talk about Bitcoin and different things. But and some of them have experiences of their friends putting significant money in and lost their keys. They've lost all their wealth. So for them, the centralized system of knowing that they have X, Y, Z in a brokerage account or in a bank or something like that, if they lost their PIN number, they could go there, give them their account number, prove their ID, they could still access their wealth. But you have no chance of that in the cryptographic system. If you lose your key, you lost everything in one sense. So, people who get involved with these things, you need to learn, like every investment in one sense that you're buying, you need to learn what you're putting your money into, how you store it, why do you want to buy it, what your purpose of buying it, what needs to be done to safely and securely store it, whether it be gold, silver, or Bitcoin. And on the digital side, of course, I mean, you need to give people your keys. What happens if something happens to you? All of a sudden, I'm not wishing it upon anyone, but you're in a car accident, for example, and you've got X amount of wealth sitting in Bitcoins in some wallet somewhere, and no one knows about the key. Just lost wealth, vaporized, gone. That's the tragedy of it. That's a big downside. So people who are getting involved with Bitcoin at various times, do your research. And I think it's fantastic. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer currency. And I think there's a lot of upside on pricing as well. It's not financial advice, but I believe there's a lot of upside. In fact, Bitcoin, even this year, has moved. I mean, it's just under 13,000 now, I think, as we speak. So it's been a fantastic move even this year in that respect. So, if you're putting a bit of your paper money in buying Bitcoin, and Bitcoin price continues to rise, you're just increasing your buying value, your purchasing power. You're getting exponential return on the paper currency that you're paid in, which I think is very, very, very smart. You're going to buy a lot more goods and services with your Bitcoin than what you're going to do with your paper currency over time. That's what I believe. But of course, not all retailers accept it. Although you can get cards, it's much more liquid today and much easier to use than just a few years back. But people need to do the research. They need to get skilled at this new currency, just like you buy a new iPhone for the very first time. I mean, I remember when I first got a phone, I still had problems with it. You got to learn. You got to learn your tools, don't you? And I think that's really important for people to be able to do to get themselves involved with Bitcoin. There's many other cryptocurrencies out there, what they refer to alternative coins, altcoins. I like Ethereum. In fact, we have some Ethereum. Of course, we actually used to mine for it as well, which I like. Ethereum's had a good run. They're the two main coins. All the others, there's probably great ones to be out there. I don't touch them at all anymore. Most of them are backed by nothing, have no real value or adoption in one sense. So even though trading-wise, it could be, trading is a different thing, of course. But I don't trade or do anything like that. I just buy them as a long-term asset hold.
Yeah, there's some great projects, of course, in the space. I mean, definitely very, very great, cool applications with the but you got to be into the market. You got to learn it. You got to read a lot. You got to study a lot on it, to actually make the right decision. So Bitcoin is just, I would say it as a little bit of a safe haven in that aspect. So you and it just actually hit 13,000, Bill. So it's actually over 13,000 now. So just that just the last, it's really cool. So what I like so much is, as well about it, and especially here with the company, which of course you run, is that I can get paid in Bitcoin. I can buy my gold in Bitcoin, but I can get paid in Bitcoin. So that means I can actually accumulate gold and I can accumulate Bitcoin. So I'm actually hedged with both, which is really great. And of course, silver as well. So I can't forget silver, because silver has also a huge upside, very much, because it's still, I believe, very much undervalued. But and again, not a financial advice here. But yeah, so this is what I like so much, because now we can have it all, right?
Well, you raise a great point, Claudia, and people, I mean, you'll be doing the presentation this Saturday, but if you look at the last presentations, we're teaching people about how you've been getting your gold and silver primarily, let's say, from nothing in one sense. When we say nothing, I mean, you're providing service, you're training people, you're coaching people, you're referring our products and services. As a result of that effort, you're getting paid commissions, correct? And you're taking part of those commissions, you've been converting them directly into gold and silver for the last 12 years. So month after month, you're buying some gold and silver. But you're right. That's why I see on the treasury. This is why I didn't actually click to me, Claudia, but you just awoken me to it. This is why I see that you sometimes get paid out in Bitcoin. You're building up your stash of Bitcoin as well. I was only okay. So that's a smart move as well. You use our affiliate program, which is very cost effective. Share it with other people, earn your commissions, and convert those commissions into gold and silver. Part of them, not all of them, if you like. It's your money. You can do what you like with it. But you're diversifying paper wealth into assets, which is real assets, gold and silver, which is highly liquid. And you also have the ability of getting paid out in the Bitcoin, which means you're actually getting ownership of Bitcoin. Instead of taking 1,000 euros pushed to your bank account, you'll take 1,000 euros pushed to your Bitcoin account. So you're getting ownership of Bitcoin, which you can use. So it's good to have. It's just another currency to have. Actually, Bitcoin's an international currency. There's no borders of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's the other exciting thing about it as well.
And from the beginning of the year, from the sort of 2000, where the Bitcoin, I think, was back then, maybe 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 something, I forgot it already. It's now 13,000 hits, so the commissions even went up, which is really great. But on the subject of crypto, actually, we got a question here. Is from Paul. Are there some mining contracts coming back? You're muted. You're still.
Okay. Yes, I'm here now. Hi, Paul. The answer is no at the moment, not at this particular stage. I know Genesis Mining that we're engaged with, fantastic company. Okay, technology, the answer is no. But let me just back up on them just briefly, very quickly. I know Genesis Mining are actually selling Bitcoin mining a bit at the moment, but the whole key to mining Bitcoin was, of course, the rigs that you actually had, the power of the rigs, how much electricity was required in a rig to be able to generate XYZ Bitcoin. And the technology that we had, the chips that we had in our rigs going back 2016, 17, and 18. Primarily, the maintenance fee to mine a Bitcoin, to mine per terahash, which is exchanged for currency, of course, for Bitcoin, was around 28 cents per terahash. And of course, today, the new rigs that they have, which the whole new system that they built in 2020, it's 3 cents. Significant difference. So, and I think per terahash, you're getting paid about 7 or 8 cents per terahash now, and the mining's about 3, and their maintenance fees are around 3 cents, I think, whereas ours were 28 cents. In fact, when we started in 2016, it was 32 cents. At the end of 2015, I think the rigs at that particular time, the maintenance fee was around 80 cents. So you can see how technology and the power of the chips has made them so much more efficient. But unfortunately, when the market changed at the end of 2017, there's many things that actually happened. But significantly in 2018, we had chips which cost a lot of money to mine, 28 cents, and of course the price dropped, the difficulty rate went up, and of course we're only mining per terahash maybe 20 cents per terahash and less. I think it got down to about 12 cents per terahash. It was costing 28 cents per terahash to mine. So there's no money in it. That's really what happened. But we see now with the new rigs that Genesis Mining actually have, it's 3 cents terahash. That's fantastic to know on their maintenance fee. We're still open to look at such things. We're still open to look at such opportunities, and we are looking at such opportunities. It's getting squeezed a bit tighter too with technology versus the halving, because the halving of Bitcoin occurs every 4 years. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins. And of course, up until May this year, there was 1,800 Bitcoins mined per day, which is used to reward the miners for validating the transactions. Well, since May, it's only 900 Bitcoins per day, which means the reward's been halved even further. And that's why they need to have technology such as 3 cents per, so low, like 3 cents with these new chips to be able to make it efficient. But in another less than 4 years, it's going to go from 900 Bitcoin down to 450 Bitcoin a day. So technology will have to advance that fast to be able to keep mining in the profitability. Otherwise, it'll still be good for miners in one sense, but as a retail product to be able to sell it, it's probably no margin there. So we're looking at it now. We'll see where it all goes. And but the answer right now is no, we don't have it. That's a long answer to a short question, Claudia. It's an interesting discussion, actually.
Yes, I mean, you can just talk for hours and hours on that, because I mean, that's really, it's just so much to talk about it. But you have to say, okay, so how do you get it across the best point, of course, to people? So, but in conclusion, obviously, because really the discussion started around gold, silver versus Bitcoin, I believe we can firmly say you like both, you have both, you own both, and of course you basically see it as a store of value, but as well, of course, great for transaction. I mean, really easy for the transaction. How do you see its future? I mean, you mentioned, of course, PayPal now taking it on with other free cryptocurrencies. That is, of course, Litecoin, that is Ethereum, and that is Bitcoin Cash, which PayPal just announced. And I think this was the biggest news in cryptocurrency this year. Where do you see its trend heading for the space?
Well, I'm no expert in Bitcoin, Claudia. I'm no expert, but as I said, it's the Bitcoin protocol, the way it's engineered as a peer-to-peer payment system, is ingenious. There's limited supply. It has a store of value. Okay, the adoption is increasing around the world. The younger generations certainly understand it and get it, and they're using it. So I see as demand and supply. The mining is actually decreasing. It's got the halving every 4 years. So I think long term, I see the price being strong. The other side of that, of course, is maybe a government comes down and shuts it down legally. But even if they did that, of course, people would still trade it on the black market. But of course, you trade it on the black market, but then you've got to be able to convert it. If let's say I'm in China, for example, probably the world's biggest economy for Bitcoin in one respect. Let's say if China outlaws Bitcoin, as in puts the iron fist down and says no more Bitcoin, otherwise it's treason because you're not using the sovereign currency. You're not allowed to use any other currency. The only legal tender currency in our country, in fact, the only legal tender currency in the United States is the US dollar. The only legal tender currency in the EU region is the EU, correct? Now you can they haven't through the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, they allow exchange rates between currencies and different things like that. They haven't put Bitcoin there yet. But let's just say that in China they say Bitcoin is illegal. You cannot use it anymore. If you're found using it and not our sovereign currency, 10 years jail. So you risk then, of course, okay, you can't use it. Now, I could go to you. I know that you're a Bitcoin trader and you've got a car to sell. Maybe I could go to you and on the black market we exchange some Bitcoin. But for daily shopping, food, maybe your rent, things like that, if you're actually stuck in that one particular country and don't have the ability to convert it maybe back to some sort of cash through an exchange, it may limit you in one sense unless you've got a highly adoptable community there just trading in Bitcoin. And I mean, could the governments do that? Absolutely. I mean, governments.
It's happening in Venezuela, Bill. Right now, it's happening in Venezuela.
Yeah, and because I mean they have their own particular e-currency, correct? They have the petro coin, whatever they call it. So you know, and governments do things. I mean, once we understand that the central banking system is through the effects of inflation is to transfer wealth away from you citizens back to the central banking system. That is it. You understand that governments will do whatever they can to transfer wealth away from them back to the system. And they've done it. We saw it happen in America for over 40 years where it was illegal for US citizens to own gold. We see the devaluations of currencies around the world. I mean, I've just finished listening to, I've been doing some research on Nelson Mandela. I read his book, A Long Journey to Freedom. An amazing book, what they had to go through, what governments do to stack the odds against the people. I'm now into about 10 hours of WikiLeaks with Julian Assange, one of my favorite activists in one sense, the information and what the documents they had there and what he released there through from Bradley Manning or Chelsea Manning, and of course these other big newspapers that were associated with him in the early days. Governments, what came out there, it's incredible the amount of dialogue. I mean over a million documents, whatever it was, and what's on those documents, every bit of information has been proven to be true. I can tell you right now, you know, Western developed countries are always purging on developing countries. There's always one trying to get a better deal on the other, and they do horrible things, and they make decisions which are against the people. That's why I like Bitcoin, because that's why I like gold, because it's not, when you have gold in your hand, it's unencumbered, it's yours. When you have a Bitcoin in your wallet, it's yours. It's not the government's, it's yours. It's total protection. So I'm a great advocate for decentralized currencies, but I like gold and I like Bitcoin in one sense. I like both of them. I have a lot more gold than what I have Bitcoin. That's probably because I was a late adopter getting into Bitcoin. I didn't listen to Claudia years ago. But it doesn't matter. I still like to own some today, and I think the future of it is great, pending, let's say, government regulation. But even with government regulation on the black market, it still exists. But in the end, you have to have liquidity, correct? You've got to be able to move it, convert it to something when you need it. So it's an interesting subject, a very interesting subject. And I'm not going to say that I have all the answers to it, but I just think it's great to have both. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, just quickly, I mean, gold and silver, of course, are commodities traded on the largest exchanges in Chicago, in the USA. Bitcoin is also traded on as a commodity in the largest exchange in the USA as well, which happened at the end of 2017, which primary reason for probably pushing it to 20,000. In some other countries, it's like Switzerland, for example, they adopt it as a currency. They see it as a currency, you know, just like the British pound or euro. US dollar, they see Bitcoin as a currency. So different countries and jurisdictions have a different, some see it as a threat, some see it as a great asset to be engaged in one sense. So let's see. But very exciting times. It's very exciting for the young generations to be growing up in a time of having Bitcoin. I mean, the e-currencies, of course, the whole objective of governments is that there won't be any paper currencies. I mean, paper currency, notes and stuff, that won't exist. Everything will be digital. We just seen by this COVID-19 tracking, They already know where you are, what you're doing. But when it comes down to having an e-currency, they'll know that if I spend my e-currency, I tap my phone with Claudia, I bought something from her, they know that I spent this token number, and they know which one it is. They'd exchange that for Claudia for whatever that might be. If I go to a shop, they might say they'll know I'm buying coffee with these tokens, or they'll know everything. So I'm a bit of an anti-establishment or centralized type person, but that's where the world is trending. That's why I'm a great believer in supporting groups like WikiLeaks that report the truth, and these other activist groups, to keep the balance of scales. Because if you don't keep the balance of scales, governments, as they always do, will tip it in their favor. So the courageous people that get out there and challenge things, I do support them. But I'm not going to get into politics. That's all I'll touch on that, Claudia.
No, we cannot, because we are on a platform here which we are using and streaming that, which, of course, yeah, I'm not going to say the word, but yeah, I mean, I in 2018, when I was in Panama for some time there, staying, and had a lot of people coming over from Venezuela, obviously fleeing because they looking for survival, and so a lot of them they had obviously the US dollar, they had some US dollar outside their country, but it was this was a time when mining was really hard. Bitcoin mining was really hard, and of course Venezuela, they have very cheap electricity, or nothing. It doesn't cost nothing electricity there. Obviously, it's a country with the most oil reserves, right? So literally they got the electricity for free, but I know from quite a lot of people there that we had heard the stories that so they put there in their their garage, their basically mining machines. They bought those rigs, and so why? Well, because obviously they wanted to have Bitcoin because it had way more value than the paper currency of Venezuela. But of course, what happened with the government is so once they found out, and in a socialist or communist environment like such I came from, is everybody spies on you, because when they spy on you, you get rewarded. So the government, they invent a really great system, and that is the spying system. So when you spy, you get rewarded. And so they put a lot of people there in prison. God knows what they did with them when they discovered they had, of course, Bitcoin mining rigs or other rigs for cryptocurrency mining. So a lot of control. I mean, big time control. And so this is why just my advice, just not advice, but just my point of view is always, I love Bitcoin, like it. I want to own more. I want to own more, also different other cryptocurrencies. But I definitely want to own as well gold and silver, because you just never know. And I just don't put all my eggs in my basket. That's why, when I can create great income through Utopian Global, I can then diversify that. And so I can get actually paid to save in gold, silver, or Bitcoin. So, what else? I mean, I never really can lose there. So that's what I like, the beauty about the system which you really developed there.
Well, you nailed it clearly, Claudia. I mean, you get paid to save in gold, silver, and or Bitcoin, which I've just really recognized it myself today on this call when you reminded me of it, actually. Very smart concept. You're getting your assets. You're providing labor sharing on products and services. As a result, you're getting commissions. Those commissions, you're taking part in currency. You're taking part in gold and silver. You're taking part in Bitcoin. Very smart. Fully diversified. Totally liquid. You got your cash when you're traveling around. You got your Bitcoin, which is a store of value. And will grow in value, I believe, compared to major currencies. And the same with gold and silver. So that's a good strategy. That's one that I would follow.
Awesome. Well, we are 45 minutes into the discussion. We don't want to make it too long. I'm just checking here the questions here, which come same as Robert Kiyosaki. David just saying economic reset. That's why we want to using sovereign crypto. And Paul, you nailed it. Better to earn cash flow with Utopian Global. Correct. Save metal, invest in store, and diversify in other opportunities. Yeah, you nailed it.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, folks, this was our discussion. Again, we could go really deep into it, but there's no point in going too deep into it, because there's a lot of people who, they want to have the basics. Okay, so yes, we certainly in our trainings and stuff like that, we do a little bit more into depth, talking into depth, but there's no point in doing it too much in it, because there's a lot of people, diverse people, some who have a lot of knowledge, some who have very, very little knowledge about that. So our discussion was really just around Bitcoin, obviously gold, silver today. What's our thought? What's our CEO's thought? And I hope that you enjoyed this little chat we had, and I hope you're going to like it. You're going to share it. You're going to ask more questions, and I hope that you're sincerely getting started with owning some gold, silver, and Bitcoin, and be well diversified. With that, Bill, I want to say thank you again for coming on and taking the time. I know time is certainly precious, and we never get this asset back, which is our greatest asset, which is time. And I wish you a great trip to Dubai.
Well, thank you, Claudia. Thanks for hosting a call. Very interesting topic, actually. It's one that we could talk about for hours, actually. And thanks, Paul, for the questions and comments. Yeah, stay safe and well, everyone, and diversify. Build cash flow and diversify. Good night to you.